One of them was the motion to let the tender to hire a realtor at a fixed price to obtain signed options for purchasing private properties on the downtown site in order to determine the land acquisition costs and demolition costs. This is a result of a motion that was adopted by council. That tender has been developed and let, and the closing date will be December 6, 2007.
The motion was that a tender be let to hire a realtor at a fixed price to obtain signed options for purchasing the private properties on the downtown site. That being the site bounded by Manitoba Street on the south, High Street on the north, 1st and 2nd Avenues west. And that's to accommodate the design that has been sent to Regina and Ottawa requesting funding for a hockey rink, curling rink, and flexi hall housing soccer. On November 5th this year, I made an inquiry asking how many parking spots would be required by city bylaw for a facility of that size. And the answer I received in our package is that it would require 1,100 off-street parking spaces. Even if you were to, as I'm sure is going to happen, drop the soccer from the design, you would still need 848 parking spots. And I'm wondering why we're letting a tender calling for a realtor to obtain prices on acquiring land for the building but not for the parking. Or are we going to build a 4,500 seat hockey arena and a curling rink and forget about parking? Or is it the intent of those who are driving this to pretend that parking for this facility is not part of the facility so that the costs don't have to be factored in? And I'm wondering how council or administration could allow a tender like that to go forward when it doesn't include what is required by bylaw of the city, and that is parking. And I would point out, at a 4,500 seat arena, we're dreaming in Technicolor, but it would require 784 parking stalls, which would be about 1 parking stall for every anticipated 6 attendees. But we don't have any of that accommodated for in this tender that is closing in 2 days. How did that happen? Or are we just pretending that parking for the downtown site is a non-issue that will be dealt with later? There would have to be the acquiring of property. Why wouldn't that be included in the tender? It's a city requirement that a facility of this size belonging to the city have parking. It's in our bylaws. How can we ignore our bylaws when we're doing something like this? And I would ask anyone who feels like answering that question to do so.
I think, Mr. Chairman, in responding to the question with respect to the tender being let, it is let in regard to a motion by this council. A motion was passed by this council that the tender be let to determine the land acquisition costs of the downtown site and the demolition costs, and that tender reflects those efforts to determine the land acquisition costs. With respect to parking and traffic, that study is in the works, and we anticipate our traffic study to be coming forward to the committee in the near future. So really that tender is let in accordance with the wishes of this council, in accordance with the motion that was passed by this council.
Thank you, Worship. Councillor Swanson.
But that still doesn't answer the question. Just because a majority of people here pass a motion, it's in conflict with the requirements of the city. And that study you referred to, Mr. Mayor, it was not a traffic and parking study, it was a traffic study. And when you issue a tender for the downtown site, you've issued a tender that does not include a legally required component of that site. And I believe, I must say, that the intent is to ignore the parking component, to pretend the parking requirements are not a cost of this project, because even without the parking component, you have such a large problem with the cost of this project. You're ignoring essential components of this project, essential costs of this project, and you're not doing any service to the citizens of Moose Jaw by pretending that it's not a problem that you have.
But certainly, I've had people talk to me about the situation at the Civic Center as it exists now. Parking at the Civic Center is very difficult with an arena that has 2,300 people coming to it. And we have one that's proposed that is going to have twice that size. Then where are those people going to park? A person told me they made the mistake of heading up to get a burger at one of the fast food places on the night of a hockey game. And, you know, they couldn't get out of the parking lot where they bought the burger because of all the traffic that was there at the Civic Center. So there are traffic problems in that area. Obviously, if you go out and pave 17 acres on the east side of town, you might not have difficulty parking your car, but you might have trouble getting out of the one access that there is, you know, to drive to your home.
You say that that you're hearing from people that parking is difficult at the Civic Center. Well, then why on earth would we congest this downtown and making it even tighter and less parking spaces, not less parking spots available with considering the downtown site?
In the downtown core. And so it's not without precedent, nor for that matter is it without precedent for the city to relax its parking bylaw. The very same thing was done with the cultural center. The sun rose the next morning. We all got by fine, and it hasn't presented a significant problem. And so the fact that we have a bylaw in place doesn't necessarily mean that it's an insurmountable issue. There are ways around these things should City Council decide ultimately that that is the appropriate location, just like there are ways around the parking issue at the Civic Center where there has been an agreement entered into with the mall. But for that agreement, we would not have adequate parking at the Civic Center either.